What should individuals and businesses know about innovation? And what role does artificial intelligence play in effective innovation?
Innovation is a process, not an outcome. People think of innovation as a new product, a new technology, but no, innovation is the process that led to that outcome. So AI can be adopted at a tech company in two ways, right? Number one, you can actually build it. I think a lot of folks underestimate how important innovation is, because if you're not innovating in your business or your organization, remember, your competitors are. Here's the recipe to solve innovation. Hire the right people, get the right processes and incentives in place. Number three, get the right tools and technology. Go learn new skills every month. That could be taking an academic course on machine learning. That could be reading a book about human psychology. That could be learning to paint. Go invest in learning new skills each month, because those skills will keep your brain active, number one. And number two, those skills will become useful over the course of your career. Look, I've made tons of mistakes. Some really bad. The biggest one that I think I'm now much more careful about is
Hello and welcome back. With the numerous paraded benefits of artificial intelligence, you would think that any ambitious individual or business would already be using artificial intelligence to enhance their productivity in one way or the other, right? Well, not so fast. According to Forbes, 1 in every 4 businesses still do not use artificial intelligence in any of their business functions. Makes you wonder why. Here in the studio to help us make sense of all of this is the CEO of the world's largest innovation SaaS company, IdeaScale. Nick Jain is the CEO of IdeaScale, and he began using artificial intelligence way before AI became cool. He joins us today to simplify innovation and adoption of AI into businesses. So if you watch this episode to the very end, you're guaranteed to leave with clear, actionable steps that you can use to implement AI in not just your personal life, but also in enhancing productivity within your businesses. And you would also learn how to innovate properly in order to stay abreast of the current times. Nick Jain has had an illustrious career so far, as we will get to see shortly. In school, he excelled academically, graduating at the top of his class at Harvard Business School and summa cum laude from Dartmouth with a triple major in math, physics, and economics. Hello, Nick. How are you today?
Newton, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Really excited to be here and hopefully have some great discussions.
Oh yes, I believe we will. We definitely will. Nick, in your own words, can you tell us who exactly is Nick Jain and what's his mission on planet Earth?
So I am Nick, I guess one of many Nicks in the world, probably a couple million out there. I don't know if I have a mission on the world, but I'll list a kind of few things that get me up in the morning. Number one, professionally, I like the idea that we're building a company and we're beyond building, we're growing a company that helps other organizations innovate. Our software is really cool, and it's at the heart of what a lot of big major multinational companies and governments use to allow them to innovate more effectively. Me personally, I think 2 or 3 things get me really excited. Number one, I just like building things. In high school, I was a carpenter, so I used to build buildings. Today, I build companies. Second is I like competing. I like that it is difficult to win in the world of business, and I like the fact that I get to lead a company every day that is going out there and working their butts off to go win. And And then thirdly, I like tech. Tech is software is just such a cool area where stuff is always evolving. You always need to learn, no matter whether you're the CEO of Google or whether you're running a smaller organization such as myself. You need to constantly be out there learning, and that's good because it keeps you sharp, it keeps you motivated, and keeps you aware of the world rather than just showing up to the day to work every day and doing the same thing. And that's such an awesome part of what I get to do for a living.
I saw your company IdeaScale has worked with some pretty big names, the likes of Pfizer, Comcast.
Yes.
Let us in on what IdeaScale does and the nature of the services it provides.
Sure. So we are the largest innovation software company in the world. And what our software does is you can think of it like a social network for ideas. So think of like TikTok and Instagram, but instead of putting on funny dance videos or cute cat videos, people are posting their ideas about how they can make their company or their government better. Other people then vote the ideas up and down, and then there's algorithms also help you figure out which ideas are good. So number one, people put in ideas. Number two, ideas through a combination of human and algorithms are figured out which ideas are good versus bad. And then number three, the best ideas get put in front of the executives that then turn those ideas into reality. So you can think of us either as the TikTok of ideas or a CRM or database system for great ideas. And our customers tend to be incredibly large, complex organizations such as Comcast and Pfizer, you already mentioned, but also in the nonprofit space, Doctors Without Borders, a bunch of major universities, major US government organizations like the Post Office and Transportation Safety Administration. And all of these organizations rely on our software to help them come up with great ideas and then get those great ideas turned into reality. And these could be ideas for a new product, a new service, a way to improve their manufacturing process, a way to keep their employees happier. We are the storage, we are the system that allows great ideas to surface.
TikTok for ideas. Nice one. Well, on the bright side, unlike TikTok, IdeaScale doesn't have to fight with or work with the government, at least not yet.
No, many of our customers have been government since day one. And we were formed initially to support major US government organizations. And then we realized that, hey, the problems that the US government was facing are actually pretty similar, at least for innovation, as private sector organizations in the United States and private sector organizations overseas. So we have customers pretty much in every sector, public sector, private sector, every industry, couple dozen countries around the world. We solve innovation, and that's a universal problem.
I agree with that. Nick, on this show, it is tradition for the guest to treat us to the story of their tech career. Do you mind sharing your own tech story, from those early beginnings all the way to your current position at the helm of IdeaScale?
Sure. I'll start the professional journey really through in high school because I think some of the early beginnings are less relevant. But I've always been interested in sciences. I loved math and physics. That, as you mentioned, that's what I majored in college. But even in high school, I remember writing like HTML code and a few simple C++ games. In StarCraft, an old video game, I created my own custom scenarios, which had some pretty complex logic. So my first coding experiences were age 13 or 14, maybe 14 or 15. My first I've had a computer in my home thanks to my parents, despite being quite poor. We had a computer in our home from the age of 5 onwards. So I had a computer, in the early 1990s when it was very uncommon.
A Windows 95 maybe?
Even before Windows 95, our first computer was a Tandy, which was a different. It's now a dead company, but it was a Tandy. It was before Windows and Mac took over the world. My second was a Windows 95, and then I remember Windows 98 and Windows XP and so on. So I've been used computers very early thanks to some of the investments my parents made, and they made really wise decisions exposing me to technology. When I was in college and university, I was studying math and physics, and if you're studying science, you naturally use computers a lot, right? Computers and programming and simulations. So I remember programming in a language called Fortran, which It's from like the 1960s or 70s. But then after college, I actually spent the next 10 years of my career doing something very non-tech related. I was a professional investor on Wall Street, sometimes investing in technology companies, but really being more of a finance and professional investor. And then over the last about 5 years ago, I got tapped to co-run a $100 million revenue trucking company, which is obviously a tremendous career opportunity. It was a turnaround situation. They brought me in. How do we make this company that is struggling more successful? I was successful in doing that. And then somehow I've ended up since then as a professional CEO. So either private equity firms or founders hire me to take companies that are doing well and make them do extraordinary. So about 2 years ago, I was tapped to come into IdeaScale, which we've already talked about as a B2B SaaS innovation company. I've been here 2 years. And my mandate from the board here is how do we take IdeaScale, which has an amazing product and has been really successful in the United States, and go turn it into $1 billion global company, which is what we've been working on over the past 2 years. Last year, we went international. So we added, we have people now in 8 countries, are able to offer services in, 15 or so languages. And it's truly a global team. And now about 30 or so % of our revenues are overseas too, or outside the United States, and growing as well. In pretty much every geographic region. We won our first major African customer a few weeks ago. We're winning some big East Asia customers this week. So it's an exciting journey to be on.
Amazing stuff. Well done to you and the team. Nick, if we may delve into the crux of today's episode, innovation. What should individuals and businesses know about innovation, and what role does artificial intelligence play in effective innovation?
Sure, I'll try to answer both questions. The first is what role does innovation play? There's 2 answers for it. Or number 1 is innovation is a process, not an outcome. People think of innovation as a new product, a new technology, but no, innovation is the process that led to that outcome, that technology. So innovation is not how do you get an iPhone, but rather how do you create a team with the right tools and technology and process to go create an iPhone, or to go invent the wheel, or to go send a spaceship to Mars. That's number 1. Number 2 is, I think a lot of folks underestimate how important innovation is, because if you're not innovating in your business or your organization, remember your competitors are, right? So you need to be absolutely paranoid and innovating every day. No matter whether you're a restaurant, you need to be coming up with new foods and better service quality. If you're a high-tech company, if you're a manufacturing company, if you're not innovating each day and getting better at whatever you do, your competitors are, and they will very quickly get ahead. And we've seen some really notable examples of this in aerospace, where Boeing has had some challenges. Intel's another famous example. Just a week and a half ago, they were taken off the S&P 500 after 40 years of defining the semiconductor industry, right? Intel inside was the phrase we all grew up with. Intel was the semiconductor company gold standard, and now they are being, replaced. And that's extraordinary, but extraordinarily unfortunate, but they were a beacon of innovation. To answer the second half of your question, what role does AI play? I would say AI today is it's a tool. It's a very powerful tool, but it's a tool nonetheless. No different than, let's say, having electricity 150 years ago allowed you to be reading and writing at midnight, right? It enabled people to be more creative and more innovative, because you know at night otherwise you couldn't write because there wasn't light. So that enabled authors and scientists and accountants to do work at night. AI is similarly a tool that allows people to be more effective and expand the scope of things they do. And the reason why it's perhaps a little bit more unique than other innovations or changes that have happened over the last 100 years is it is accessible to so many more people, right? A plane is still, a large portion of the world, like more than half the world, has never been on a plane because that's expensive, right? But you go to a village in India or a small city in Romania, and everyone has got phones nowadays. And if you have access to a phone and even a 3G cellular network, you can access ChatGPT or Gemini or Anthropic or these generative AI tools completely for free. And so now we have this incredible technology that is accessible to everyone for free, no matter the poorest human being to the richest human being. It's accessible. You don't really need anything beyond an internet connection, which most people have some access to nowadays in the world, even if through an internet cafe. Number two, this technology doesn't require you to have any specialized training. AI has been around for 30 or 40 years, but you needed to be an engineer to go use AI 30 years ago. Today, you can speak to it in your native language, and that could be Chinese, that could be English, that could be Swahili. These AI tools you can talk to an AI tool in Swahili. You don't even have to talk English. And that has made it even more accessible because now you don't have to be an engineer. You don't need to know how to code. You can engage with these tools. So that incredible level of accessibility has done two things. Number one, it has made this tool more useful to more people. Number two is it has expanded the scope of expertise for a human being. So for me, I'm really good at math and technology, but I'm not a very artistic person. So there were lots of things I could not do 2 years ago that I can do now. For example, if I want to design a software application 2 years ago, I would have to hire a designer, go draw up an application UX interface. Today, I can do what I'm really good at, and an AI can draw the user interface for a new application or website for me in seconds, and it will make it look beautiful in a way that I could never do without hiring a professional designer. And that's made me much more. It's complemented my weaknesses, and that's complementing everyone's weakness, and that's enables us to all do more. Not only because we have more capacity, but we supplement our weaknesses.
Yep, that's very true. AI does supplement our skill sets. It supplements the expertise of any company that's innovative enough to incorporate AI into their daily activities. Most companies, as you know, they are not agile, to say the least. They are not agile, not flexible. They take forever to change processes. And again, that ties nicely into the statistics I shared at the very beginning of the show, where a quarter of businesses still do not use artificial intelligence. So for the viewers watching this, Nick, wondering how they can go about adopting artificial intelligence properly, what advice or what tips can you share with them to help them overcome the obstacles or whatever is holding them back from adopting artificial intelligence? And also, how can they go about incorporating artificial intelligence into their businesses, as it's not always as easy as it might seem?
Sure. So it's actually, I'm not surprised that, a quarter of businesses are not using AI. And I bet you the vast majority of them, even the 3/4 that are really just using it to write emails or sales content, right? Most businesses have not adopted AI. And the reason is, I would attribute it to two fundamental forces. Number one is what's called status quo bias. It's really difficult for people to change their behaviors. It's fundamentally human that you get up at the same time every day and you do the same thing every day, and people aren't naturally going to break out of their habits. And that's even more true at organizational level. So that's number one, what's called status quo bias or difficulty of change. The second is what's called being overwhelmed by choices. If I were to ask you, go read a book, or if I were to tell you, go read a book, it's a little bit scary because there's a million books. Which book should you read? Should you read Paradise Lost? Should you read Peter Rabbit? Should you read a technical textbook on quantum mechanics? That's really scary because there's so many books out there, and AI is the same way. When somebody says go use AI, people get scared, because there's a million AI applications out there and they don't know which one to use or how to use it. The way you overcome this is twofold. For status quo bias, at an organizational level, the way to overcome it is you go make it someone's job to go find these AI opportunities. Like, go hire somebody, that whose sole job it is to find it opportunities for AI to either drive revenues or decrease costs or increase service quality in your organization. If you're a smaller organization, make it somebody's job that exists if you can't afford to hire someone. And finally, if you're an individual, it's actually really easy. Just wake up one morning and say, like, hey, I'm going to try one AI tool today that I didn't try last week. That's what I do, for example, right? I know that it's very hard for me to break my own habits. So every week I try one new AI tool in an area that I don't know at all. So this morning, for example, I was playing around with an AI that helps you build humanoid Lego robots and they watch them learn how to walk when they don't have brains. They just are trying to figure out how to use their weirdly shaped bodies. And you can make their bodies any shape you want, and they try and learn how to walk with one leg, with two legs, with five legs, with no legs, with just like weird bumpy things. You can make them look like whatever you'd like. So that's at an individual level.
On the subject of businesses hiring and making somebody accountable for researching on AI and introducing AI solutions into the company, what profile of person should these companies be looking for? How should that person look like, right? What exactly are those skill sets or maybe a job title that they should be searching for in order to fill this role?
I don't think you need to go look for someone with a specialist tool or with a special skill set. You don't need, unless you're doing advanced machine learning or actually like building your own AI tools, you actually don't need somebody with a fancy skill set. If you are looking for somebody to build your own custom AI or do what's called hyperparameter tuning, then you need a machine learning engineer. But for 99% of businesses that are not like advanced AI software companies, that's not what you need. You just need somebody who is motivated and creative. And that can be someone fresh out of college. They don't even need a college degree. But make it that person's job and hold them accountable that, hey, your sole job is to find parts of our business that could benefit from AI, go try a tool out, and go get it implemented in our business.
What about AI consultants? Albeit it's a fairly new job category, but some of them are pretty good, quite good in what they do, especially in integrating artificial intelligence into business functions. What do you think about them?
So I've not worked with an AI consultant, but I would say they certainly know more than somebody who knows nothing, right? But number one, consultants are expensive. Number two, they do tend to have domain expertise in whatever area. That could be healthcare consulting or AI consulting. Consultants do add value and they do have domain expertise, but they're expensive. And is it more valuable for your organization to either hire an expensive consultant who has domain expertise versus just hire someone who will build domain expertise within your business and go learn AI? My preference is to do the latter because I generally like working with in-house people rather than outsourced or consultants, because I think the incentives are better aligned and consultants are in addition very, very expensive. But I'm not against them, right? There's a very, very talented consultants out there and great firms and great people in the consulting industry.
So we have just discussed how businesses in almost any industry can go about incorporating artificial intelligence in their companies. What about the tech industry, if we may zoom in, particularly in the tech industry, particularly in software development companies? As someone who operates chiefly in this field, do you have any pointers for people specifically dedicated to working in this field?
Sure. So AI can be adopted at a tech company in two ways, right? Number one, you can actually build it into your software, and that almost every software company is doing that, and they should be, right? So we built an AI writer tool into our software that helps people express ideas better. We did that a year ago. In 2 or 3 months, we're releasing an AI tool that helps you analyze qualitative data. Quantitative data analysis is very easy. Qualitative data analysis is very complex. And then we're releasing a AI ideation co-pilot, which generates its own ideas. So we've created an AI that is creative, which is kind of cool. Creative, relative, and specific to your business's or organization's needs. So that's coming out in a few months. But every software company is integrating AI into its software in some way, shape, or form, which is good. So I'm not going to provide advice there. Everyone's already doing it. The two areas where internally a lot of software companies can still be adopting AI more aggressively. Number one is on software engineering, co-piloting. I think a lot of software companies are still just dipping their toes into using AI co-pilots to write code. when in fact they should be adopting it much more aggressively. I think Google came out with a press release a week or two ago that 1/3 of their code is now being written by AI, which is kind of cool, and that's Google. Most company, and that they're writing in some cases very complex applications that AI is not well suited to do. Most businesses should in fact be writing a much greater proportion of their code using AI copilots. So that's number one, where I would advocate for software companies to use AI software code writing copilots far more aggressively than they are. Number two is in business decision making. I think that a lot of people are making decisions as human beings and then asking AI to execute those decisions. So I tell AI, I want to reach out to, let's say, Newton. I would tell AI to help me write a great email to Newton the way a sales rep might. I think that's everyone's already doing that, but I think a much better purpose of AI is tell me what I should do today. You tell me, like, make AI your kind of mini boss, because it will help you be more effective and make better decisions and organize your life perhaps more than you will. Because as a human being, we are prone to all sorts of randomness in our lives. You may wake up one day and you didn't sleep well and you're grumpy, or you didn't remember that you have these 8 tasks due, or you may prioritize them wrong because you have finite working memory. The beautiful thing about AI is it doesn't suffer from any of those weaknesses. AI doesn't get tired. It doesn't have moods. It doesn't have hormonal swings. It can remember everything that you're supposed to be doing. So I think a lot of businesses, especially software businesses and executives actually more in general, should be using AI to make decisions and perhaps make better decisions than the human being could even by himself or herself.
I think a major reason why the idea of adopting artificial intelligence never crosses the minds of many of these business owners today is because they are not innovating enough. The entire notion of innovation is not prioritized enough. And SMBs, small and medium-sized businesses, they are notorious, for not allocating sufficient resources and time to innovating within their companies. They tend to push innovation to the bottom of whatever planning and priority list they have within their companies, thinking innovation is something that's done exclusively by those well-funded companies, the large behemoths. As someone who has a company that's fundamentally built on innovation, right? Would you have some tips or some pointers for anyone watching this to go about innovating the right way in order to reap all the benefits? Because I guess innovation, as anything else, you can over-innovate, right? If you keep changing direction every other day, you wouldn't get to your destination. So as someone who has been in this field for some time, would you have any pointers, any advice?
Sure. So you're absolutely right that a lot of organizations get stuck in, as you described it, the hamster wheel of doing the same thing over and not innovating. That's both good and bad. It's bad for the organization, but thankfully that's why IdeaScale exists. That's the problem we solve. So selfishly, I'm glad that a lot of organizations struggle with it, because that's why our business exists. That's who my customers are. And it's not uncommon, right? When you become a large organization, it's very easy to habitually do the same thing over and over and over again and not actually create and do things that are like innovation. So there's a few technical solves to that. Number one, go hire an innovation team. Make it someone's job to solve the problem, because unless it's someone's job, things fall through the cracks in any organization. So if you want the floor swept, you hire a janitor. If you want an AI model trained, you go hire an ML engineer. Go hire someone whose job it is to manage innovation. So that's why, for example, a lot of large organizations have started hiring folks called chief innovation officers. They've made it someone's job who's responsible to create an innovation process and deliver innovation for however that's defined for an organization. Again, that may be different for a pharmaceutical company versus a government agency versus a university. But everyone is struggling with breaking out of these hamster wheels and actually doing something innovative. The important thing, I think there's 3.5 things that you need in order to have innovation. Number one, you need the right people. Number two, you need the right processes and incentives. Number three, you need the right tools and technology. And then the half thing you need to do is measure it. I think, and that's the reason why I say it's a half thing, is that's a universal principle. If you're doing anything in life and you're not measuring outcomes, it's not real. Whether you're talking about marketing, whether you're talking about new products, whether you're talking about delivering services to, if you're a government agency delivering services to your population, if you're not measuring outcomes, it's not real. And that's true with innovation as well. You have to be able to measure the outcomes. And that could be, again, the metric may differ. Is it customer satisfaction? Is it the number of new products? Is it new revenue? Is it cost reduction? Whatever it is. So the advice I would give to all these large organizations is, well, I give three pieces of advice. Number one is, you're not alone if you're stuck not innovating, because that's a universal problem, right? Number two, here's the recipe to solve innovation. Hire the right people, get the right processes and incentives in place. Number three, get the right tools and technology. Go use my software. It's completely free for small organizations or teams less than 100 people. If you don't like us, go use one of our competitors. I obviously prefer to use us. And number three, measure the outcomes of your innovation program, because that has two benefits. Number one, it gives you a feedback cycle correcting if you're doing something wrong, and it allows you to scale up if you're doing things right. And number two, if innovation is succeeding, you get more resources to drive more innovation. That's really important because you create virtuous cycles of innovation when you measure it. And if you don't measure it, it's not real, and you don't even know if you're doing harm.
Fantastic piece of advice there. If anyone was to have any blueprint for something as abstract as innovation, I was certain that person would be you. Nick, looking back at the career you've had and the mistakes you've made along the way, is there any particular significant mistake you've made along the way that you don't mind sharing with the audience?
Sure. Look, I've made tons of mistakes. Some really bad. The biggest one that I think I'm now much more careful about, is my philosophy until recently was, until just a couple of years ago, was, look, if you create the right incentives, people are smart enough and ethical enough to do the right thing. And I realized that that's not true, because it assumes that everyone is capable of figuring out what the right thing is. And that's something, actually multiple boards have told me that, like, hey, that's not how actually people work. So in managing people, I think I've moved from a incentive plus trust plus liberty framework of management to one where it is much more trust but verify, which is kind of a silly thing because you hear that phrase all the time, trust but verify. And I think I've moved much more into that framework where there's a lot more kind of fast feedback cycles, fast verification cycles, much more monitoring, because I think that results in better business outcomes.
I couldn't agree more. Nick, for anyone looking to follow in your footsteps and to eventually build a career similar to what you have built for yourself, is there any piece of advice in particular you would dish out to such people?
Invest in continuing education, whatever field you're in, whether you're a carpenter or a CEO. Go learn new skills every month. That could be taking an academic course on machine learning. That could be reading a book about human psychology. That could be learning to paint. Go invest in learning new skills each month, because those skills will keep your brain active, number one. And number two, those skills will become useful over the course of your career. I didn't start my career in technology, and I wasn't an engineer or software programmer. I underinvested those skills early on in my career, and the consequence of that is I am having to spend a lot of time now learning about software engineering, right? I spend 30, 40, 50 hours every month going to learn like software engineering, machine learning, and coding and new software technologies, because I'm so far behind the curve on some aspects of that, which, a lot of people are ahead on. So I would tell the younger version of myself, go learn how to code much, much earlier in your career. And I would recommend that actually not just for people in software and technology. I'm a big proponent that almost any white collar professional now needs to know some level of in software coding and interacting with computers. Otherwise, they are not going to be as effective or valuable in the workforce over the next decade. Everyone needs to know how to code. Two ways. Firstly, for me personally, best way is through LinkedIn. My name is Nick Jain. Super easy to find. DM me. I'll respond to 100% of messages. For the company, our website is IdeaScale.com. You can see it above my shoulder. Our software is completely free for teams less than 100 people. So that could be a small entrepreneur, or that could be a 100-person team in a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Come check us out. Software is completely free. It's not a trial, and it's incredibly powerful software. So highly recommend people to check it out.
Thank you, Nick, for coming on the show and for sharing such invaluable insights and directions on innovation and AI adoption.
No, you've been a great host. Thank you so much, Newton, for having me on your show.
And on that note, we bring this episode to an end. Thank you for watching till the very end. Please do share, subscribe, and like this episode. Show your support so I can continue reporting. Until the next episode, where we're going to have yet another interesting guest to discuss another pressing and important, relevant tech topic in the tech space. It's goodbye from me.